Rodney, what's up, buddy?
Diatomaceous earth. Some people refer to it as DE. If you're in the farming community and you listen to this podcast, first I want to say big ups. Appreciate you. Second, I want to say you're probably familiar with this from the agricultural grade that's used as a pesticide. But there's a food grade, a culinary grade, if you will, that humans can consume. I've been doing this for a little while. It's a desiccant. It dries things. I actually tried this. I found a brown widow spider, and I trapped it. It was a big one. Trapped it, and I put some DE on it, and it dries out. This is how it works as a pesticide. It's really fine particles of these diatoms. So diatoms, like the little marine creatures that are like really small, and they're broken, and they fossilize, and they break up. Most of the ocean bed is made out of them, and it's broken up into super fine particles, and you put it on a bug, the exoskeleton, it like shreds its way through the exoskeleton and dries the creature out, like dries all the fluids. From a human perspective, some people like it because it does that with toxins and heavy metals, and they say like even tapeworms and stuff like that inside your gut. For me, it has been like my digestive tract gets going like money. And I feel good with it. Like I've taken it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then taken a couple months off, and then gone back, and I've noticed a notable difference between taking it and not.
So what I hear is, 1, I should try this, and 2, you kill spiders with chemicals.
It's not a chemical. This is from the earth.
You can just like
It's from the earth.
see
You go to
making experiments with spiders and just drying them out and going.
I mean, yeah, but that's.
Welcome to, or welcome back to, More in Common. This is our social experiment. See, everyone has a story that can help us learn from one another. And we bring people into this safe space that we have learned to create so we can learn about their stories and get into difficult topics that challenge us in conversation and ultimately how we think.
And we have a lot of these conversations, and we're seeing a lot of similar threads through all of them. So what we're doing is breaking down these conversations to create a set of tools and a map that'll help you become a conversation boss so that you can be a catalyst for conversation in your day-to-day life.
And of course, we have to remind you, www.moreincommonpod.com, where you can find all the goodness of More in Common Pod. You can sign up for our newsletter. And if you're feeling punchy and you like what's going on today, feel free to share this away. Get more listeners, more ears on these awesome stories from our awesome guests. So, we are coming off of an awesome episode with Tina McGuff. What was a big takeaway for you, Mr. Rodney?
A big takeaway for me right now is how you got after those W's. Really appreciated that. But in the Tina conversation, I feel myself starting to become a little more comfortable in these conversations about mental illness. And then we had this conversation, and it's just like a whole new ballpark of things that I just didn't understand. And so it is, if you listen to it, or if you haven't, you go back, like it is really me exploring just what is psychosis, and I thought that went with this. And it's like, no, it can go with all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And it presents differently, and
it's complicated.
It's complex, and that really, it's cracking the nut on this, or starting to go below the surface for me has been a journey. So, but I really, Tina's just grace in sharing her story and her love with her mission and trying to erase the stigma. It's just really good stuff. So I was really happy that we were able to get her to come on. What about you?
If you want to be uncomfortable, read her book. Oh. If you really want to get to even the more messiness, if you want to get to the messiness that is anorexia, I highly recommend her book. for a biography in a way in this story, it is a page turner. She writes it really, really well, and she keeps you in to learn more. And it's detailed, it's messy, and it is an amazing story of perseverance and resilience and survival. And, I just love how honest she is about the struggle, and she has no shame about it because she really is dedicated to breaking down that stigma. And I just love how aware she is about how she experienced it, even, so many years later, so she can break it down into simple terms for others to understand what that experience was like for her. So she's an amazing person, and Seconds to Snap is her book. I highly recommend making that purchase and reading it. So now, who do we have today?
Thomas Knox. Thomas is a native New Yorker. He comes from a pretty unique family. He spent a lot of time in the foster system growing up, and most recently he's created Date While You Wait and Be Great Bowties. Date While You Wait is literally Thomas sitting down with a table and 2 folding chairs and a sign that says, Date While You Wait, specifically while New Yorkers are waiting at the subway station in Manhattan or all over. And then Be Great Bowties has a goal to embody greatness, inspire, connect, and inspire those around us to harness their inner potential by allowing them to express the best aspects of themselves in a unique, seamless, and stylish manner. What do we get into?
I got to do a special call out to Be Great Bowties, who is now partnering with an amazing Brittany Chung that we all got to meet last year at Elevation Society. So purchasing a bow tie donates to Elevation Society as it's an effort to break down, to end suicide.
Making connections.
It's awesome. I mean, we talk about his life. We talk about him in the foster system, his amazing relationship with his dad. Like, it still fascinates me to this day.
I still want to talk to him.
Like, I still would love to. So, there's just so much. And of course, we talk a lot about Date While You Wait. It's a really, really awesome business that he's running there. And I definitely, I'm looking forward to bringing this episode to you. Now, any observations from the episode?
I had a couple. Mainly Thomas's positive outlook on the foster system. I guess I really haven't talked to many foster kids as adults. And his outlook is just really positive. He said it made him who he is. So he's very thankful and grateful. And that's kind of his attitude in general.
Yeah.
And his ability to navigate conflicting points of view, see relationship with father as a youngster and be who he is and be secure in who he is. And even in that environment is something to listen for.
Yeah.
What are your conversation tips today?
I think there's one. It's curiosity. Like, there is a lot that we seek to understand. And, I'll be honest, it's just purely based on curiosity and trying to understand without judgment. So I think there's a lot there to look out for and pay attention to. So as always, enjoy this amazing conversation with our friend, Thomas Knox.
Because they really wanted us to be accepted in the world, and it was so minute to even my name. My dad's name is Thomas. My name's Thomas, but my dad wanted to name me Thomas because he's like, if your name was Tyrone or if your name was Deshaun, that could be a hindrance. That's how deep my parents looked into stuff. And for me, it just was like, I'm like, what about the person? What about the person?
Today we are with Thomas Knox. Thomas, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Excited to be here. Thank you for joining us. Off the top, I am very curious about this, and I've tried to find the answer, and I don't know if I have it yet. But what was your inspiration to start Date While You Wait?
Date While You Wait was kind of a mistake. I didn't really I started it based on negativity happening in New York City subways. I feel like when people travel and they're commuting, they're very focused on themselves. And when you're not focused on yourself, you have people who are trying to sell you something, or you have people who are playing music, or you have people who are essentially just in the way, right? So I wanted to do something positive to just get people to connect in a unique way. And the idea was brought about based on a conversation I had with a friend who I was supposed to go out with for dinner. And she canceled on me because her commute home was really, really bad. The train she was on, it was really hot, and she got off the train, waited for another train, and there were people selling things, and she got on another train, and then there were people performing, and she was just really frustrated. And in that moment, it just popped into my head, like, what if I do something where I connect with people?
When did you start it?
June 2015.
So you basically just grabbed a table, brought it to a Subway, brought Connect 4, and sat down with a sign.
There's a little more to it than that, but
Okay.
yeah, somewhat. When I started, there was no board game. So the first day I did it, I just had 2 chairs and a table and a sign, and my goal was just to have as many conversations as possible. So I end up having like 18 or 20 conversations with all different types
How long
of
they
people.
last, or does it depend?
It definitely ranged. Some were like 5 minutes, and others were like 20 minutes. And it was really unique because some people were trying to figure out what it was. Other people thought I was really like dating, so they were trying to go on like a real date. Some people just wanted to sit down. So I had a couple of elderly people who just sat down because they needed a rest.
They were tired,
but would talk with me.
So what was that first conversation like? Like, how did that first person sat down? You've got to remember it, right?
I will never forget it.
Yeah.
And there's a specific reason why, and I'll share it. Because the first time I did Date While You Wait, the first person that sat down with me I didn't even set up. Like I was walking down the stairs with the signing table and chairs, and she got off the train and she stopped me and she's like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm about to set up a table." Like I didn't even have a setup. So she waited like 10 minutes for me to like figure out how. I didn't even know how I was going to set up. It was just so funny. So she waited for me to set up. I ended up setting up. Her name is Sade. She's the CEO of the National Black Theater here in New York. And what's very interesting with it is that she was with Zoe Kravitz, which I didn't know.
I just saw her in a movie last night.
I've never met Zoe Kravitz. Her and Zoe Kravitz are best friends. I didn't know this. She was with Zoe Kravitz, and I'm sitting with her, and we're talking, and I'm like, "Hey, does your friend want to sit too?" And I remember Zoe Kravitz asking, "Are we recording? Are we taking photos?" And we're like, "Yes." And she was like, "No, I'm good." So she didn't end up sitting with me, but her friend did, and we sat for about like 10 minutes, and we talked about just like how our day was going. What else is very interesting with Sade is that Sade's boyfriend at the time, his name was Thomas. So after we connected, she was like, "Yeah, I would love to connect again, being funny." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be really dope." And she's like, "But I already got a Thomas," which is really funny.
Yeah.
And now she's married to him. Like me and her still stay in contact. Cool. She's married to him and they have a child. But yeah, it was incredible. She was great. I really appreciate her for taking a chance and kicking it with me.
So
wait, so you do record the conversations?
We do not.
We don't.
We just took photos, but once we said we were taking photos,
yeah.
Zoe Kravitz was like, "I'm good."
Yeah, no record of this for me, especially who is this guy?
Exactly.
So you had 18 to 20 conversations that first day.
Yeah.
Before anybody knew what was going on.
Yep.
And then you just decided this is what needs to happen, and you went with it.
Not exactly.
No?
Afterwards I kind of hated it and dreaded it for a couple of hours because I was super tired and I was in the subway for 3 to 4 hours. So I was like, "That was great, cool. I'm going home. I'm going to sleep." Like, we did it from like 3 to 6. So I went home.
AM or PM?
PM. Sorry,
Okay.
3 to 6 PM. At the 14th Street Union Square station here in New York. And I was like, "Man, I'm tired. I'm going home. I'm crashing." And I remember like sleeping for like half an hour, and I got a call from my friend who ended up taking the photos for me. He was like, "Hey man, did you post the photos I took?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm tired. Like, I'll do it." And he's like, "No man, like create an album right now, share it on Facebook." And I was like, "Nah, like I'm tired. Like I'll do it tomorrow. I have time for it." He's like, "If you don't do this, someone's gonna steal this idea. It's such a dope idea. Like, please just get up and do it." So I got up, I posted like 30 photos. I went to sleep. I shared it on my personal, and I went to sleep. So the next morning I woke up and it was shared like 200,000 times.
Oh my God! On your first day.
first day, and I had like maybe 150, 200 messages, and like everybody was trying to interview me. So like NBC reached out, CBS, like everybody in New York Post. It was just out of control, and I didn't know what to do. I was so confused. I didn't know. I was so overwhelmed because I didn't know what it was myself. I just wanted to do something this one time. So, yeah, it ended up becoming a thing because I kept getting invited to be recorded to do it more. So I just did it more.
Wow.
So
how about that?
I'm kind of curious, like what? So you notice this thing that happens with commutes and with people being self-absorbed in subway in New York, but like what is it about you or your upbringing or your past that allowed you to notice that?
So I get that question a lot because the average person doesn't think like that, right? They're not like, oh, I'm going to go sit in subways. I think for me, I've always been the type of guy that I'm very curious by people. Like I'm curious what people think. I'm curious why people do things. So I've always been the type of, when I was a kid, I was always in discovery mode. I always used to do things just to kind of see how people will react. And I think my parents, before I get into that, my parents have never been in a relationship. So my mom and my dad went out on a couple of dates. They were intimate, and my mom got pregnant, and that was it. They really didn't have a relationship. So my parents have never been together. I've never lived in the same household with them. And throughout my childhood, I would go from one parent to another. It was the reason I bring it up is because they both taught me two different kind of ways to do things, but they were so similar. So my mom would tell me to do something, or I would tell my mom like, hey, I'm interested in this, and she'll be like, hey, you should check it out this way. And then she'll tell my dad, and he would give me feedback on how to do it his way, and it just would always add up. So that's something I think brought them together, but kind of kept them apart. My parents have always been about like they've always taught us, me and my siblings, about the importance of being open-minded. Like always, that's something they always taught us. But I feel like they're not open-minded people, which is really funny. And I realized that. Yeah.
You said siblings.
Yeah. How many?
There's 4 of us.
What's the math on that?
Yeah.
I'm the oldest. I'm 31. My brother right under me just turned 30. Then I have a sister who's 24, and then I have another brother who's 18.
All from them? Just those two?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So
okay.
my brother and my brother that's right under me, who's 30, we have the same mother and father. And it's really weird because like I said, my parents never really dated. So after my mom had me, my dad and my mom try to work it out because they have a kid now. Mm-hmm. And they were intimate and then end up getting pregnant again. And they've never been together. Like it's the weirdest thing ever. And then my mom went on to have my sister and my brother by 2 other men. So 3 fathers with 4 different children. Yeah. So my mom ended up marrying my brother's father, my youngest brother's father, ended up getting divorced. So now she's not with him. She's by herself. My dad's by himself. And, they're living a great single life in their 50s and 60s.
So yeah. Where'd you grow up then? Like where did all of this take place?
Well, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Brooklyn, I would say Brooklyn till I was about 17, 18. But my dad lived in Brooklyn. My mom lived in Staten Island. So I would go between homes. Like I would get in trouble with one person and it would send me to the other. So I grew up between Brooklyn and Staten Island. Like I went to middle school in Brooklyn and Staten Island. I went to high school in Brooklyn and Staten Island.
Which did you prefer?
Staten Island for sure. As far as school, it was incredible. I was a class clown. I remember there was a point where I was in so much trouble at school that I would just do things to like get everybody involved with the fun. So there was a day where I put on a wig and I walked around as Rick James because Chappelle was big. And I literally was Rick James for the whole day, and it was hilarious. And I used to do like Rick James impersonations once a week.
Rick James.
Yeah, I would literally run around the school doing that. People still remember it, which is funny. So like I go places now, and people see me and they're like, "Yo, you were the Rick James kid in school," and I'm like, "Yeah, that was 12 years ago." It's all love.
So I kind of derailed a little bit. You were saying that they taught you to be open-minded, and yet they themselves were not.
Yeah, Yeah. So my dad is like pro black militant, black power guy. He feels weird about white people, and he talks. He just not. He's very uncomfortable around cops. My mom, she was on drugs for a large portion of my childhood, so I've been in group homes. I've been in the foster care system because my parents. There was a point where they both couldn't take care of me. So my mom has this weird relationship with the city of New York and with kind of how the government and welfare, and it's just really weird how my parents, like I said, the dynamic with them are, but they want their kids, they wanted their kids to be not like them, right? Most parents, they want their kids to be better than them. So my parents always, to me, it was like a contradiction as a kid, but they always told me to like respect and love everybody. But then I'll see my dad curse out a white guy. Like it's just really, it's like really weird. Um, and it's just how it was when I was a kid, and I grew to understand it. Like I understand it more now as an adult because they really wanted us to be accepted in the world. And it was so minute to like even like my name. My dad's name is Thomas. My name's Thomas, but my dad wanted to name me Thomas because he's like, if your name was Tyrone or if your name was, Deshaun, that could be a hindrance. That's how deep my parents looked into stuff. And for me, it just was like, I'm like, what about the person? What about the person? Like, what if I'm a good employee? Or what if he's like, things like that matter when you're a black man in America. So yeah, I'm rambling a little bit, but
No, this is good
No,
stuff.
I mean,
that's what it is.
how is it that I mean, you came out like your parents said all these things, but visual representation is just as, if not more important, to the outcomes that you have in life. Like, how did you, like, you got a solid head on your shoulder, all of these things. You think about people positively. Like, where did that come from? I mean, is it just because they kept telling you that and you just processed it and internalized it? Like you.
Oh no, I understand what you mean. So my parents set the tone by telling me, hey, this is how you should be. This is how you should treat people. You shouldn't disrespect women and all. They set the tone, but what really kind of took it to the next level was when I went into the foster care system, when I went into these group homes. So I share this a lot with students when I speak at schools. The best thing that could ever happen to me was going into a group home because I met other young men that were in similar situations that I was in, so we could relate. We had the ability to relate, even though, I was this black kid from Brooklyn. I would meet I met a kid from Bronx who was Puerto Rican, or I met a kid from Westchester who was white, but they had similar issues with their families, and it created a brotherhood for me. So, which because of those brotherhoods, I realized and I learned a lot of like what real family means. Family to me is not always specific to blood. Like, yes, you're related to somebody because you guys are blood related, but family to me is the tribe you have around you, people who support you as well as you supporting them. Like I tell you guys, I'm driving around in my friend's car. He's like a brother to me. He's my big bro. Like I can call him for anything, and I feel like he treats me better than some of my blood relatives. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely because of the things that were happening to me. Like I went into a group home. Then when I got out the group home, because of this brotherhood that I built, and because of the staff, and because of the relationships I built in a group home, I was equipped to be successful in high school and be successful in middle school. Because I left when I was like in the 8th grade, so and moved back with my dad. And at that point, I was just ready. I had all these tools and resources to be successful as I continued into my adolescence. So yeah, that was what kind of was the driving force to get me.
So you had. How would you qualify the experience in the group home foster system? Was it good for you? Was it like, how would you
yeah, what's that like? Yeah.
So it's as much as people give negative, kind of say they're negative, it was incredible for me. It changed my life. Like I'll never forget. I was the type of kid that I was a mama's boy. So if someone said anything negative about my mom, I would fight you. Even if someone said something positive, I would fight you. I would say, keep my mother's
name. Don't talk about my mom. Yeah.
Don't talk about mom. And I remember my mom was heavily on drugs. And I remember when I the day I went into the group home, or a couple days prior to it, I was evaluated in the psych ward in Staten Island because my mom was doing drugs. I came home from school. I was in like the 7th grade, and my mom was there doing drugs with another person. And I asked the person to leave. Like, I was this little gangster 7th grader. So I come in the house and I'm like, hey man, get the F out of my house. Like, who are you? And she's like shooting up with this guy, and he wouldn't leave. So I went and I got a broom and I attacked him with this broom. And I remember him calling the cops, and the cops come and they end up taking her. So I guess she ended up going into maybe some type of program, and I ended up being evaluated in this psych ward. So I was in a psych ward for like 24 hours or maybe a couple days. And in that moment, I met this kid who was also in the psych ward with me. I can't remember what for, but he taught me how to play chess, which is so crazy. And the whole time I was there, I felt like I was in like Wonderland. It was so weird. Like, I'm in this psych ward, but all these people had all these different talents, and I ended up learning how to play chess. And I ended up getting a chess set from this kid, and then I was transferred to a group home, and I stayed in a group home for like 2 years. So yeah, those moments are moments that I feel like because of them, I am who I am, and I would never talk negatively about the foster care system. I'll never talk negatively about group homes. I think there are group homes and there are situations within the foster care system that are negative, but it's those isolated situations. I think the programs themselves are put in place to support the child, and I got support. I don't have any. I was never like molested or touched or physically abused or mentally. Like, I had all my situations were great.
I mean, I have a lot of knowledge about it. My aunt has she's worked in various versions of the system pretty much all my life, and then I'm kind of plugged into it out here in Los Angeles, and it seems like most of the negative stuff you hear about is people taking advantage of the system. And out here in LA, there are some just systematic problems, and part of it being there are more kids than are currently able to be served, and so there's some scales of efficiency that need to be added. But that is, I mean, I asked a question because I don't know that I've talked to many people that grew up in it or had spent time in it. If I have asked the question, I don't know if many of them actually responded like, yeah, it was great. Like it was fantastic for me, and this is why. And that's dope to hear.
I'm very fascinated by the idea that your dad has a hard time with white people, black militant, and not an inch of that rubbed off on you.
Wait, or did it?
Or did it? Yeah, like
I
did
right now. I did not. I love everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did
So
not
how did that like manifest itself growing up for you? Just getting an understanding of that experience from your side. Obviously, having a conversation with him would be different.
Yeah. So it was very weird because I would, my parents when I went into it really manifested because when I was in a group home, like I was saying, I had all different types of young men that were from different races, different homes. Yeah. So that's when I first saw it. And then when I got home, my dad purposely took me out of school in Brooklyn and put me in school in Staten Island because he wanted me to be in a more diverse school.
For real?
He like purposely took me out. So he was like, I don't want you to grow up. I want you to go to a school with only black kids. I want you to go to a school that has that's mixed with kids. So I ended up going to school in Staten Island. And my best friend is Dominican, and one of my best friends is Indian, and like it's just crazy how it worked out.
It's crazy. It's very. The thing that one thing I'm picking up on is it's interesting to me that you're not confused. Like, like, hey, I'm gonna name you Thomas because it's a more white sounding name, and you'll do better in America. And I want you to be. But I'm gonna go cuss out this dude named Tom, and then like because he's white, and
it's I think the coolest, the most interesting thing, and not to talk, I mean, so much about your dad, but it's almost like he had an inherent self-awareness. He just didn't do anything about it, but the way he did something about it, the way he did something about it was through you. He's like
exactly, yeah. So that's what I was gonna get into. My dad. He was also in the foster care system. and he got out, or he went back to his mom when he was like 8 or 9. Never had a relationship with her. So throughout his whole life, even though he was there with his mom, and my dad has 4 other siblings. So I have 3 uncles and an aunt. Well, he has more because he has some step siblings, but the ones that he grew up with, and uh, he didn't really have a relationship with his mother or with my grandmother because my grandmother had mental illness. So she was taken to they took her to like a church, and she was in this program for a while. So that's when he went into the foster care system, and then when he got out, he grew up with his foster parents and his foster brothers. So when he finally had an opportunity to connect with his mother, they never had that connect. Even to this day, my grandmother's passed away now, but even until her death, they never had like a really strong bond. But my dad took care of her because it was his mother. It wasn't because he because it wasn't because he was a mama's boy like me. It was because this is my mother.
He just
It's
felt
my duty.
responsible because
Yeah, it's my duty to protect my mother and to be there for my mother. So he tells me all the time. He's like, I love my mother, but I wasn't one of those kids where like if my mother like disowned me, it wouldn't bother me because I never had a relationship with her.
Well, it
Like
makes
that.
sense. She
Like,
wasn't there. It's just kind of interesting. It's yet another contradiction. It sounds like that he felt the responsibility to take care of her when she didn't necessarily take care of him.
exactly. Yeah, and my dad's always been the type of guy that he's always been hyper focused on common sense. He says common sense to me at least 3-4 times a day. Still, he's like, I'll ask him something. And he's like, well, when you think about common sense, this is what you should do. And I think a lot of stuff that he's done throughout his life, he put common sense behind it to him, and his common sense led him to be in these really cool situations. But I wasn't confused because at home I knew what I got, and then at school I knew what it was. So I knew it was 2 different dynamics. What really took a turn was when I became an adult, because what was happening is I would bring friends home. So I remember like the whole Eric Gardner and Michael Brown situation. I remember going to march at Washington Square Park. We were marching from Washington Square Park up to, I believe it was like to like Central Park, and I went with 2 of my white friends. And I remember my dad. I called my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, do you want to go?" And he's like, "Nah, I marched. I'm over it. Marching is a waste." He's like, "As Black people, we need to do more than just march." So he's like, "I'm not going." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So I go marching with my friends, and then I get a call. My dad's like, "Hey, I'm at the march." So I guess he's like, "I changed my mind. I'm at the march." So I'm like, "Great, let's meet up." We go to meet up, and as soon as he sees my wife, like we walk, and I say, "Hey, Dad, this is my friend John," and he says, "Oh, hell no. I'm not fucking marching with no white people. Like, I'm not fucking doing that." He walks off. And I turn to my friends and I'm like, "I'm so sorry." Like, my dad, like, I didn't know he was going to act like this. And it was like, it's been moments like that where I bring people that are not Black around, and my dad's like, he just does not play with it, right?
So
But how would your dad feel about you marrying a white woman or
Oh, yeah.
somebody that's not Black?
So we recently just went through this. So when I moved to Philly, I was dating a white woman. We dated for like almost 2 months. And she kept asking me to meet my dad. Like, she was like, "Oh, I want to meet your dad. I want to meet your dad." And I'm like, and I currently live with my dad. I ended up moving with him. So I was like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, I know my dad. I don't think it's a good idea. But she just kept asking me about it. So then I went to my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, really want to introduce you to this girl I'm dating. She's white. Her name's Kate." And he was like, "You could bring her over, but I don't know how it would feel. Like, you can bring her, but I don't know how it would feel." He was just honest. He was like, I really don't know how. Like, he's like, on one hand, he said, "I don't really like white people. I'm not really interested in being around them." But he said, "But on the other hand, this is someone who loves and cares about my son and who you like and who you care about." So he said, "I really don't know how I would feel about it." And me and her stopped talking, so it ended up not happening. Literally, like, stopped talking next week. So it ended up not happening, and I was happy about it. But I tell my dad very proudly, I'm like, I date everybody. My thing is, I will always date and love people who like love me. If I meet a woman and I don't care, and people like think I'm full of it, but I swear to you, this is the God's honest truth. I will marry or date anybody. I don't care if you're 500 pounds. I don't care if you're anorexic. Like, if you love me and you respect me, and I do the same for you, we'll rock out. And I hope you get out of that. I hope you lose weight if that's something you want to do. I hope you eat. Like, I think the problem with relationships is that we're so shallow when it comes to people's mindsets and what people can bring to the table for people. Like we all our hearts are the same colors, our brains are the same. I'm attracted to people that love and care about me. I've always been that way.
I'm curious to your dad said prior to him actually showing up to the march in response to Eric Gardner that Black people need to do more than just march. What's your thought on that? I'm curious and what that actually means to you. Like, do you somewhat agree?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think it's Black people. I think people need to do more than just march, because Black people. One thing after that march, after that particular march, my dad walked off. I didn't finish the story, but he ended up coming back and apologizing. And because I called him in the moment and I was like, "Hey, Dad, it's because of people like you and because of mindsets like that we're in this shit. So you need to get your shit together." And I guess he walked for like half an hour and then realized it, and then he called me back and he was like, "I'm so sorry," and I ended up apologizing to me. And my friends. So
God, I want to talk to your dad now.
So
I know we just started talking to you, but
Yeah.
I'm just so the conflicts.
yeah,
This is the thing that I find most fascinating about your experience with, like, we talk a lot in side conversations and other things about separating feelings from knowledge, logic, and data, right? Like, I may feel a certain way about something. That doesn't make it true, nor does it make it, as negative as it may make me feel. It's this idea that crime is up, even if data may be down, just because I see it in the news, whatever it may be. And your dad, did a great job, separating those two things, so you have the ability to go through life functioning that way. Am I assessing that well? Like,
yeah. I think the biggest thing there is that my dad never wanted me and my brother to go through what he went through.
yeah.
So he grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and riots and marching. Those are things that he saw at a high level. So marching, and not even marching, but just being a Black man in 1969 and
It's
being
completely
a Black man
different. It meant
in
something
2019.
completely.
But it is completely different. But there are some similarities, right? We
For sure.
still see oppression. We still see police brutality. So my dad, in his mind, he's like, it's been 40 years. It's been 30 years. These things are not changing. And I want my kids to have the best possibility the best opportunity to be what they want, to do what they want. And I can get deeper and deeper into it, because I'll share with you guys, which is another thing which blows my mind. My dad does not like Barack Obama. He did not vote for Barack Obama. He does not like him. But my dad likes Donald Trump. He didn't vote for Donald Trump, but likes him. He likes that Donald Trump is honest and he's unapologetic.
I think that's generational.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me, because me and him have these debates, and I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He's like, "I don't agree with what he's saying, but he's saying it."
But I like how he's saying it. Like, it seems honest.
And it's crazy to me. So I say all this to say, my dad's always wanted us to be the best people possible when it comes to living in today's society. He wanted us to have the best possibilities. So that's why he kind of trained us. And I feel like some of the stuff, to your point, he doesn't agree with, but he doesn't want his kids to have the same mindset that he has, which is militant. I watch my dad disrespect cops every day. Like, I'll be walking down the street with him, and he'll be like, "You fucking pig," and I'm like, "Officer, please excuse him." Like, it was a point where I wouldn't go out with him. Like, I would literally, and he treats cops. He treats Black cops just as bad as white cops. Yeah. So he'll call a Black cop. He'll be like, "You're just a shitty because you're a part of it. Like, you support this."
And that's kind of what I mean about it being different, about being a Black man today versus like being a militant Black in the 50s, 60s. Like, that was almost survival. Like, yeah. I needed to be around my crew, and I needed to be militant, and I needed to be very aggressive about protecting myself. And the occurrence of, like, I know that it seems like a current phenomenon of these shootings and these incidents happening with police, but like getting your ass kicked by the police for a black man was a daily occurrence.
Yeah.
Like it was a normal thing. So like, yeah, he hated the cops, like, because it was just a normal thing. And now like there's still a lot of things that go on that are similar, but it's levels. You know, there's
I'm curious, since we're on this you being a black man, the experience of it. What's that been like with Date While You Wait? Like, how has that played out for you?
So that's a very, very good question. When I started doing Date While You Wait, I set. I remember trying to figure out what I was gonna wear, and my goal was to have basically a costume, like something I only wear during Date While You Wait. So what I decided to do was always wear a bow tie, always wear some type of fedora. So if you look, every Date While You Wait I've done, I have a fedora on. Sometimes I don't have a bow tie because I broke it or I forgot it, but usually I have a fedora. Always wear some type of button-down shirt. I always wanted to put black men in a positive light during Date While You Wait. So it's funny you asked that, or not funny, but it's a very good question. What also is interesting about that is that, and this is not a secret, Date While You Wait, I get the most shit from black women. Like, black women give me so much crap, and it's, they say I make black men look desperate. Why am I sitting in the subway looking for love? Because they don't know that it's about connection. I remember there are two instances I can remember. One, I had a woman walk past me and like literally was like, damn, why are you so desperate? Like, oh my God, like, why are you here? She left. And the next time I did Date While You Wait, she came back and apologized to me and told me that she's sorry. She thought it was a dating thing. And she sat with me and we had a conversation. And it was just really funny.
Do you have any ideas as to why that might be?
I think because and it's such a long story. I think it's because of men. I don't think it's because of them. I'll backtrack and I'll talk a little bit about me dating, right? So before I did Date While You Wait, maybe a year prior to that, I was in a 5-year relationship, and my girlfriend at the time, I used to always tell her, pretty much every couple of days, I would say to her, I appreciate you bringing my girlfriend, because we live in New York and men are attacking you constantly. Like, you're a beautiful woman and you have so much going for yourself. So you're getting attacked going down the street. You're getting attacked walking into you get attacked going down the street. You walk into the building, security guard bothers you. You go up the elevator, your coworkers are bothered. And I was like, I'm just so honored that you chose to deal with me. Like, it's just mind blowing to me. And I think women, especially black women in New York, men are always, like, even on my way to New York today, men are always attacking them. And it's not only black men, but men in general. And to see someone trying to put themselves out there in a funny way can seem like, you can look at it like, oh, here's another man trying to do what men are doing. Yeah. And so I understand it from their point of view. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I also think that black men with beards, or black men in general, but more so with beards, we just get a bad rap. Like, people tell me all the time, like, you look so mean. And then when I talk to you, you just seem the total opposite. And I'm like, I can't fix how I look. Like it's just who I am. I'm sorry I look that way, but it's just how I look. And my beard's usually thicker. I don't really wear this on a regular basis. Like, it's raining today, so I threw on a hoodie and a hat. But normally I'm rocking a fedora from like Gorin Bros, and I got on, a cool sweater, and I try to be pretty fashionable. But even with that, people are like, you just look really mean. You have really. How
do you like? Because that is an underlying stereotype of black men, right? Like, you've got darker skin, you've got a beard, you've got the full facial hair, and it's watch out for him. Like, the persona, the underlying subconscious bias would have someone walk on the other side of the street because they saw you coming down if you were wearing a hoodie and a shirt. Like, how have you maintained, especially like given the experience you've had with your dad, like, how have you maintained the optimism? Like, I'm fascinated by, you keep it going. You're such a positive person. Like, you still love all the people that you meet. Is it because it's few and far between, or does it happen more often? Like, what? Talk to me about that.
It's more so
Us.
because I always look at it from their perspective. So it's funny you're asking so many questions that are hitting home because I work in Philadelphia, but it's really a town outside of Philadelphia. And yesterday I took the train to work, and when I got off the train, it was early in the morning. I had to work at 8 a.m. So it was still like the sun was coming out. And me and a woman got off the train, and she was walking in front of me, and I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable, so I crossed the street. I just did it. I just was like, I don't want to make this woman feel uncomfortable. And I was looking way worse than what I look now because I work in a warehouse, so I wear like my dirtiest sneakers, my dirtiest sweats. So I was looking pretty like a mess. And I thought to myself, if I was her, I could feel away. So I was like, let me cross the street. So I crossed the street and I walked past her and then crossed back on the side I needed to be on. And I don't know. I just think about it from people's perspective.
Have you ever done that? I've had situations like it could be at a grocery store, it could be anywhere, or at night, like leaving the grocery store. Like if I'm too close to a woman, like I'll slow down, like I'll back up, I'll give space.
Absolutely,
Like,
yeah. I also say things, so it really depends. So I may say something like I may say excuse me just to get their attention,
yeah.
so they can fully see me.
So they're not shocked by the black guy with the beard, like
Exactly.
oh, too close, man.
Exactly.
Call the
So
cops.
it all kind of depends on what I have on. So if I'm dressed to go out, or like on a regular basis, like I said, I'm wearing a fedora. So fedoras are pretty like unassuming. People are comfortable with it. So if I feel like I'm too close, I may say excuse me. She'll turn. She'll look at me, see that I'm no threat, and keep it moving. But I always try to put the shoe on the other person's foot. Like I just think about it. I'm like I know how I would feel in this situation, so I don't want to put this person in a situation. And that's just me. I've always been. I don't know. I've always had the know-how to just not put myself in certain situations. So yeah.
Is it like this is fascinating to me, right? Because I mean, I'll certainly I'm a polite person, but wouldn't think if I'm walking behind a woman late at night that I'm any kind of threat, regardless. But it's fascinating to me what drives you to do that, because to me it would be no, that's your problem. If you're threatened by me, get over yourself. I'm gonna keep living my life. And Rodney, it sounds to me like you do something similar. Knowing you, it doesn't surprise me that you would do that too. But I imagine your dad would never do it.
Exactly.
Right? So it doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother you that you have to do that? Or like,
Oh
what
yeah,
are
it
you
bothers the
trying
shit
to
out of me.
avoid it? Yeah.
It bothers me a lot.
How about you, Thomas? Does it bother you?
No. So it doesn't bother me because I understand the times in the world we live in. So I think like because we live in a society where people are threatened by anything they don't understand, it's up to me to combat that with whatever tactics I can. Now, like I said, there are times where I'll cross the street and I'll keep it moving, and there are times where I'll say something, right? I'll say excuse me, or there are times where I'll stay on the same side of the street. It kind of depends on what the situation is. There are also times where I've done it. I've crossed the street. I'll walk past the person across back, and they would notice it, and they'll say to me, "Why'd you do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I didn't want to scare you." And they're like, "Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you." Like it just, I do. I don't. It doesn't bother me because I can't control society. I can control Thomas. Society, with all due respect, is fucked up. We live in a fucked up society, especially when it comes to black men and black boys. And
Which are seen as black men, even though they're boys.
It's frustrating. That part of it is frustrating because there's more that can be done to combat the things that we go through. But at the same time, I can't be mad at you for not understanding it because you're not in that situation. All I can do is articulate it the best way I can. But even if I articulate it, it's still not as good as going through the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at the person for like I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at the fact that this
like I am.
Like the point the reason I do it is because there could be repercussions if I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's interesting about both of you, right? Just knowing Rodney, and I'm putting him in the bucket of the similar behavior. It's like I'm not doing it to acquiesce to the society. I'm doing it to make sure that I don't put myself in a bad situation based on current circumstance. But at the same time, Rodney's going to do a podcast and at our, do other things for diversity and inclusion, and you're going to do Date While You Wait and all the other things that you do to portray, black men in a positive light in a certain situation, so you can make the progress. But I'm not about to put myself in a situation that's going to impede my tomorrow. Is kind of how I interpret that type, because like me, I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, and I would just get mad. Like I'm mad at these white people that you have to avoid so you don't threaten them. But like I don't live your everyday, so I have a
Yeah, and it's a mixture. So I don't only do it specifically with white people. I do it with more so with women, and it depends on the person. I can tell I'm very good at reading body language and how people are feeling. It's just something I've always paid attention to, I guess, from
Sure.
me being in discovery mode. So body language is big for me. But in addition to that, I just want to create the best situation possible that I can create in that moment.
What has been the biggest, so what's been some of the pushback that you've gotten generally around Date While You Wait? I mean, you've been doing it, you're still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've taken a break because I had some transitions. I didn't really plan correctly when I left Apple. So I worked for Apple for 7.5 years, 8 years, and I decided to resign and focus on Date While You Wait full time. But when I did that, I didn't forecast correctly, so I had like a good 4 or 5 months that I was doing well, and then summer hit, and it kind of just went downhill. So I ended up going back to work. I worked for Yelp. So I moved to Arizona. I lived in Scottsdale for a little bit, worked for Yelp. Hated it. The whole time I was at Yelp, Yelp's not a bad company. It's just they were saying things about Yelp becoming my company. And in my mind, I was like, I have a company. So I just had to get the hell out of there. So I ended up leaving there,
I know
moving
that feeling.
moving to Philadelphia with my dad. And I've been working on Date While You Wait. And my other company is Great Bowties. Um, and really kind of focusing on developing those brands. But there's been a lot of negative. I would say that the negative has always been Date While You Wait is romantic. The names, people get on me about the name all the time. Even to this day, I still hear about like, what is Date While You Wait? And then when I explain to them, they're like, I still don't get the name. So it's definitely been that. But the biggest thing is the name. People want me to change the name. I've got invited to have segments on shows where I do romantic things, and I'm like, no, it's about connecting with people. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I'm always gonna stick true to it because I feel like this can be a viable business, and I feel like I'm creating value in people's lives. So I'll always do it. It will be something I do. I feel like in my 50s and 60s, I might recruit my kids or grandkids. We'll see how that goes. But it's just something that I see value in, and I feel like I've learned a lot from people through the conversations that I've had.
So your primary criticism is the name.
Yeah, the name. So for instance, when I introduced board games to it, the creator, the inventor, he doesn't like when I say creator, the inventor of Connect Four, reached out to me because he read an article about me in the New York Times. And when he reached out to me, I was like, "This is bull. Like, you're not there. Get the hell out of here."
You didn't invent it. Like it's always been there. Like who?
Right?
Yeah.
Come to find out, he did. His name's Howard Wexler. He's like one of my like he's my mentor. I talk to him a couple times a week.
Oh wow.
And we used to go out for dinner. He would give me feedback about Date While You Wait, and maybe our first or second time at dinner, he's like, "Yeah, you got to change the name." He's like, "You're never going to be able to make money doing this. Change the name ASAP." He's like, people are not going to understand it. And I told him respectfully, I'm like, no, I'm not going to change the name. It's catchy. I like the name of it. I think it ain't for everyone. What I'm doing is not for everyone, so it's okay. And he was like, yeah, you're never going to make money doing this. And then maybe 6 months later, we had dinner, and he calls me. He's like, hey, we need to grab dinner. I got something I need to share with you. And first thing he says to me at dinner is, it's so good you didn't change the name Date While You Wait is amazing. Everybody talks about Date While You Wait. Like, I know they know exactly what it is. They know exactly what it means. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, like it's, come to think of it, it's actually a good name. So I feel like sticking to your guns, understanding how to do what you do at a high level is something that I'm really good at. My biggest opportunity is creating a business out of it and creating a community, and that's something I've been learning over the years. So 2018 was me kind of cleaning it up. So I haven't really done it much. I didn't really do it much this year, but I literally just spent the last week mapping out, putting it on the calendar for 2019, as well as events that we're going to be doing, and I call it on my in my planner. It says the year of reckoning. That's what it says. And the reason being is because I'm about to blow Date While You Wait up in ways people never seen, like people never thought of. And I'll share with you one thing that I'm introducing is a loyalty card. So I'm going to give daters a loyalty card. Someone sits with me, they're going to get this card, and every time they come to a Date While You Wait, they'll get a punch. And after 5 punches, I'm going to give them a gift. It can be a sponsored gift. It can be something that it may be a book, but my goal is to enrich people's lives in ways that nobody's ever thought of. And I know I can do it at a high level. I just have problems financially figuring out how to make it sustainable for myself. This last year has been the toughest year I've ever had in my life, right? So as you guys know, working at Microsoft, Apple is a huge company.
Yeah.
When I worked at Apple, I was a business specialist. So I wasn't a regular specialist. I wasn't on the sales floor. My job was to create complete solutions for businesses. So my salary was good. I had my own car, had my own apartment, had a girlfriend, and then I created this thing, Date While You Wait. Lost the girlfriend, lost the car, got rid of the apartment, lost the job, and I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? And then but something kept telling me like, yo, this is your dream. Like, follow your dream, follow your dream, follow your dream. So many people have told me like, no, it's not gonna work. Like, don't do it. But then I have these little moments that it just works. Like, I started this bow tie company. I make bow ties out of Scrabble. All my bow ties are made out of Scrabble.
I'm seeing this. It's dope.
Excuse me. Thank you. They're made out of Scrabble. People, I did a fireside chat with Gary V. Right?
Gary Vaynerchuk?
Gary Vaynerchuk. He told me to my face, get rid of the bow ties. Don't do it. Like, it's not gonna make you. He's like, you'll make some money, but it's not. He's like, you need to focus on content with Date While You Wait. You're unique to doing that. Focus on content. And I disagree with Gary. Yes, I need to focus on content, but these bow ties are just as important to me. So what I did is I continued to work on them and work on them and work on them, and now I have a like viable business. Like, people buy bow ties from me, and we sell a pretty decent amount of them, and it's only growing. If you look at our hashtags or you look at on our page, people say positive things about our bow ties. So I think, I believe that if you believe in something, you have to go for it, no matter what it is. I don't care how old you are. I live with my dad. I'm a single guy. I have the dumbest debt in the world because I went from being debt free to having like dumb company debt and dumb car debt. I don't have any credit card debt or anything stupid like that, but most of my debt is just really dumb because I made some poor decisions after I created Date While You Wait. But I say all this to say, even with all the things I have going on, I'm like slowly climbing out of it, and it's a great moment. So the reason I'm so excited about what's to come in 2019 is because I know the power of Date While You Wait. If I did Date While You Wait every day of the week, I would be on Ellen or Oprah. If I did it every day of the week, I just know the power of connecting with people and how to get people to connect in that way. But I have to be realistic as well. So that's why
That's
I was like,
the power of conviction. Like, telling your mentors, your accomplished mentors, nah, I think I'm gonna do it this way. And like our business coach tells us, number one, no matter what, like when you're talking about anything, about any change or anything you're trying to do for your company, it's gotta resonate to you. Like, it's gotta be real to you. If somebody has the most awesome idea in the world, but you don't like it, like, don't do it. Because eventually that's gonna flow through your customers or your guests or whomever you're serving. They're gonna realize that it's not authentic. It's not you.
And no change is ever made by doing it the same way over and over again. It's
Right. Like
I
only
mean,
there can only be so many Gary V's.
right.
Like you can only do that way so many times.
Gary V is great at what Gary V does for himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can take what Gary V says and apply it to certain parts of what you do. But if you did exactly what Gary V did or does, and you copied it, you wouldn't be as successful. It's a different
Right.
thing. It's done
It's not
already.
gonna work the same way.
And it's a sincerity thing. Like if it's not true to who you are, like that's who Gary Vee is. So he does it. And it
Which I
works.
think is my biggest beef with not necessarily Gary Vee, but like the whole self-improvement and even workout space is like, oh, look how I did it. And it's like, no, that's great. You got a framework that works. But the people that I really like, they're like, here are the things that work for me, and here's how I found out what works for me. I went through 40 iterations of things that didn't work to figure out what did, and here's a framework to help you apply that and maybe do 20 instead of 40 because we're all different.
Yeah, and then also like what I was gonna add to that is that we fantasize based on other people's success.
Mm-hmm.
I want to fantasize on my own success. Like this is me. I want to enjoy the shit that I do. I'm happy for Gary Vee. I'm happy for Howard Wexler. They've made millions. I'm happy for them. I don't want to own the Jets. Don't care about them. Not something I'm interested in. And I think a lot of times we get excited for other people. And yes, we should commend them and we should encourage them and be
applaud them and yeah.
Hey, congratulations. Absolutely.
Congratulations to you. But that doesn't work for me. So
right.
I'm not ashamed. I'm not upset with the work I'm doing.
I think it's a form of escapism. Like because it's when you sit and look at what Gary Vee did, like you look at him going to garage sales and buying stuff to resell it at, pennies, dollars, just like that over and over. It's like, man, he was grinding. He was hustling. That's hard work. Like to sell enough shit from garage sales to make $1 million, that's a lot of work. And so it's a lot easier to be like, man, that would be awesome. Like, oh, I could do that. And like just to think about all of it versus join to go find your own. I think that's part of the reason why we end up doing that.
There's a process to the madness to everything that we do. There's a process. Howard Wexler, for instance, with Connect 4, he told me, I asked him, I said, what made you create Connect 4? He said, I made thousands of games. This was just one that stuck. He's like, I made so many different games, and this is the one that made, like, it stuck.
But it's the mindset. Like as a kid, you see your parents, let's say your parents have, they have a big house and you grow up in that and this is the type of life I want to live, but you'd never experienced the 30, 40 years prior where, they were paying off student loan debts, working, whatever they were working, going through that grind. We see a professional football player and we say, hey man, I want to do what he does. He could throw, but you don't see the hours away from the family during the holidays, the sleeping in the locker room. Like you don't see those things. Like there's no substitute for work. No matter what you do, there is no golden ticket except the lottery, and the chances of winning that are
I think that's if I think there's a danger of social media, I think that's probably the one that's the most insidious, because we see what people want us to see, and our brains don't, unless you're super conscious about it, our brains don't say, you know what, they have a bad day too, or like they took 20 photos while they were at this one beach and they just spread it out over like 6 months. It's like, man, this person's always on the beach. It's like, nah, probably not. But it just it builds this whole thing like, I want that, but we don't see the work.
So do you still so you took some time off from Date While You Wait to get things in order. Are you looking to do it in other locations? Like, is it still going to be around the subway? I've seen online you put your table maybe in a park or something like that. So I'm curious what that looks like for you.
Oh yeah, so Date While You Wait will only be in subways. There are other iterations of connections that I've created that are outside of subways. So I created a thing I call Connect More with Connect Four, and I went around New York City with a giant Connect Four, and I just played
I
Connect
saw
Four in
that.
places. So there'll be other iterations where I utilize board games and I create connections, and we use it for content, and we use it to connect with people. But Date While You Wait will only live in subways and public spaces. So like, my goal is to take it to the BART. I think the space in the space in the subways in San Francisco is perfect for Date While You Wait. It will work perfect. So I'm probably gonna just set up, get yelled at, and then find a way to get a permit. I don't really know San Francisco's
It's
laws.
San Francisco. You'll be good. Just don't
Yeah.
piss off the cops.
So my goal is to do it in some cities. I'm trying the Martyr, I believe, is in Atlanta, so I might do that. But my goal now is to get it to happen more in subway stations and on the platforms. When I did it in Philadelphia, it was weird because it wasn't in a subway platform, and it didn't really go too well. So I realized that it needs to be somewhere where people are waiting. So to answer your question, Date While You Wait will live in public spaces. But in addition to that, I've kind of rebranded what I'm doing from Date While You Wait to the Connection
Curator. Yeah.
And the reason I did that is because the main reason was because of school. So back in 2015, I signed a contract to be a public speaker with a public speaking agency, and I was traveling speaking at universities. And the feedback I would get at the universities, two things. One, my stories are way too general. They weren't really specific. I didn't really dive in. So when I would speak to students, I would just give them like outlines of what I was doing with Date While You Wait. And then two, the name Date While You Wait for like middle school students, high school students, it's a little uncomfortable because as people think, it's romantic. So I've rebranded it to be the Connection Curator. And with the Connection Curator, we have a couple of different iterations of the company. One is going to be Date While You Wait. The other will be education. So I do a lot of workshops and with schools and with students. So I have a workshop program I created, and I'm actually finishing up by the end of the year, called the Connection Series. And it's a list of 3 C's I use to connect with people, and that anybody can use to connect with family, friends, and students and peers. I'm working on that. That's going to be done.
Can I ask you what the 3 C's are?
Yeah, so it's confidence, courage, and communication. And each one I have these cool kind of activities and backstories behind them. So, for instance, with confidence, I always say you build confidence by practicing, but practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes better. So I use a series of videos. If you look at you were talking about sports, you look at like a LeBron James or you look at a Tom Brady, one thing you never miss is that they always are at practice. Tom Brady's 40 years old and he practices because you practice to make better. It'll never be perfect. You always have something you can work on. So I tell students, practice makes better, and that's something you should focus on. Under courage, you build courage for me by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. So what I would do is when I was in my early teens, I would say probably like 14, 15, if I wanted to talk to women, I used to always use, like girls my age, I would always use the rule of numbers, right? Percentages. I was like, if I talk to 20 women, the chances of me getting one there's 20 chances for me to get one. If I talk to one, she tells me no, I'm in trouble. So I have a workflow where I teach students as well. I've done this with adults that are looking to date, to go out and practice doing these exercises that will lead to you being more confident, which will help you with your confidence and your courage. And that's something that I'm all going to roll out. Like I'm telling you, 2019 is a year reckoning.
This is the year.
It's gonna be crazy. And then communication is very simple. Challenge yourself to communicate, but start with the mindset. Start with the positive mindset. So, but it goes deeper than that.
So Thomas, we got to start closing down here. Thank you for joining us today. But before we go,
time has gone too fast. But before we go, we like to ask everybody what they would like our listeners to know, what they leave everybody with.
I guess what I would like your listeners to know, and it may sound cliche, but if you have something that you want to do, and it can be anything, if if you like knitting, or you like, I don't know, you enjoy jogging, or you have a passion for cars, or whatever the case may be. If you have this feeling in your stomach of butterflies, it's like talking to the person you like for the first time. Follow that feeling, because chances are you're going to be great at it, and it's something that's going to manifest into greatness. And then I use greatness a lot because I feel like there's a lot that we have to offer the world, but we don't do it because we're uncomfortable or we're scared. The reason that you're scared to do it is because it's incredible, because it's great, and it just takes time to manifest. So if you have butterflies in your stomach, if it makes you feel anxious, that means that you probably should do it. You have a level of passion for that thing.